You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a teaching tutorial Thursday with opening night tonight. The Chiefs hosting the Ravens. We are presented by DraftKings. We do have Greg Cosell in the house, of course, the NFL Films legend, to break down tonight's game and the other big games here in week one of the 2024 NFL season. It feels so good to say that. We are, of course, presented by DraftKings. I can't remember if I said that 5 seconds ago or not. It doesn't matter. I just have to make sure I say it. I also have to make sure tomorrow, hopefully I remember, to give out awards to people that spread the word via social media. I get all these awesome press passes from all these games I call, like Cardinals Bills on Sunday, Bills home opener. I love signing them and sending them to you. Most of you have never seen a press pass before. It has my picture on it, everything. That's a pretty cool keepsake to have in your man cave or whatever. So just engage on social media with @RossTuckerNFL or @RossTuckerPod. Just reply or quote post. It all counts. Sponsor confirmation email winner. You guys know how I feel about West Shore Homes as well as future fans. Love getting some of these emails from people that are taking advantage of those codes. You have a great chance to be the winner each week. And then youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL. Not only a great place to watch the show, but also a way you can win a cameo video shout out for whoever you want it just by making any comment after you subscribe. youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL. We are racking up the patrons. I love it. Vishal Solanki, Adrian Guzman, keep on coming. Guzman, probably. Patreon.com/RT Media. Not only do you become the member of the Tuckheads family, and you get to chat with other listeners or viewers on the private Slack channel, you get all those glorious even money bets from the Even Money Betting Podcast in black and white. It is almost time for Greg Cosell. It's almost time for me to meet as many of you as possible tonight. Danny's South near the stadium in Orchard Park. I'm driving up there just to watch Ravens Chiefs with some of you and drink some Labatt Blue Lights. So drink some Labatt Blue Lights with me. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly beer. Labatt USA. And want to welcome everybody that is watching us on Vizio Watch Free Plus. We're now on yet another fast channel to go with Roku and Samsung TV Plus and all the other ones. Welcome all of the new Vizio viewers. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Okay, Greg, let's start with a contract I want to get your opinion on. Patrick Surtain just signed by far the biggest contract ever for an NFL defensive back. He's still only 24, two-time Pro Bowler. He's been all pro. Obviously, the Broncos have not been good, but he has.
Yeah, and, I'm not going to sit here and say I study every corner in the league in detail as an individual, but I remember talking to some coaches this summer, just, in general, and different topics come up, and all I heard was that Patrick Surtain is the best corner in the NFL. So I think that pretty much speaks for itself. I never get into the money. As you know, the money's the money. Guys are going to get paid. You and I, you played. We never begrudge any player getting as much money as they can. So I don't even think about that. But I think it's pretty well regarded around the league that he's the best corner in the NFL.
Wow. And only 24. That's got to be very exciting.
Well, it's funny you say that because I remember when there was talk, was it this year or even the year before, about him possibly being traded? Remember that?
Yes.
And I remember teams saying, well, I don't want to give up a first-round pick. And again, I don't work for a team, so maybe if I was in a team's building, I would think differently because obviously there's a lot of groupthink when you're in a building. I just said to myself as an outsider not working for a team, you mean you're going to tell me that you're not going to give up a first-round pick for a 23-year-old corner, the best in the league, a premium position, because you're going to give that up for a maybe? Because you never know about a first-round pick, and Patrick Surtain is not a maybe. And see, that always strikes me as interesting, and that's the whole philosophy of the draft, which is a whole different question than we're talking about now. But that always struck me as very interesting.
Yep, let's get to some of these games, Greg, because I am beyond fired up. Kudos to Ani Bose, who was on yesterday's show, and Mike North in the NFL scheduling department. Every primetime game is awesome. There's some other good games on the Sunday slate as well. We start with the Ravens and the Chiefs. And It's interesting, Greg. I didn't know this until talking with John Daigle yesterday on the Fantasy Feast podcast. Steve Spagnuolo kind of has Lamar Jackson's number when you look at the last 4 meetings or so. I mean, Lamar has not fared well against Spagnuolo's defense.
No, and a lot of it has to do with pressure. One thing about Steve Spagnuolo, as we both know, Ross, is that he is not going to back down from being aggressive with pressure. And when they played in the AFC Championship game a year ago, Lamar Jackson had 46 dropbacks, which is probably more than the Ravens want, but that's the way the game played out. 19 of those 46 dropbacks, Steve Spagnuolo brought pressure, 5 or more. And they did not fare very well. Lamar, and it's not just Lamar, obviously, but the offense did not fare well. Lamar was only 7 for 17, I think, for about 80 yards against pressure. And they were very poor on third down. But there's one thing to keep in mind here. Steve Spagnuolo is a big-time press coverage defensive coordinator. And he would tell you that L'Jarius Sneed was an absolute key to everything they did on defense, and he's not there now. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out because he wants to press because he's a big believer in it. So we'll see, tonight how that works. But they press and they attack with pressure, and the Ravens with Lamar have not handled that very well.
It's a terrific point about Sneed. He made several plays in that game. I think that the Chiefs felt like they have some other good young corners, and they didn't feel like they could pay everybody.
No, and they had to pay Chris Jones, and, it probably came down to one or the other, and they decided to pay Chris Jones.
Well, they paid Creed Humphrey recently.
Right.
They haven't paid Trey Smith yet, their right guard, who I think is sort of the enforcer of that line, right?
And hey, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him at the O-line Masterminds. He's a really impressive kid. I spent a little time talking to him. He's a super impressive kid. They're going to have to pay him. He's a really good player.
No question. Big fan of Trey Smith. I should mention, by the way, I forgot to mention this earlier. Greg is presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. How cool is that? Greg has a sponsor on the show now. What about when the Chiefs have the ball, Greg? No more Mike McDonald, no more Clowney for when the Chiefs have the ball on the Ravens defensive side.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I guess with a new coordinator, you don't know exactly what they're going to do. It's Zach Orr, right? He's the new defensive coordinator. Now, he was there, so you assume that a lot of the same concepts and principles from Mike McDonald will stay in place, but you just don't know exactly how that's going to play out. There's a lot of speculation there. Obviously, they have good players. Kyle Hamilton is certainly as versatile a safety as there is in the league. He was essentially their slot corner last year, and in Mike McDonald's defense, that position was absolutely critical. You would have to assume the same thing. I would think with the Chiefs offensively, we know Marquise Brown is out, but they do have a little more speed outside, obviously, with Worthy. So we'll see if they try to attack a little more vertically just to, stretch the defense. But there's not much to say. We know about the Chiefs offense. Probably a player who I think is, I don't want to say he's overlooked because obviously the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl, so it's not like their players are overlooked. But I'm really curious to see the usage for Isaiah Pacheco because in their scheme, he's a really good back.
Let's move on to Friday night, Greg. First ever Friday night game that I can remember.
Yep.
It's the Eagles and the Packers in Brazil. I'll just give you a blank slate, Greg, as I like to do for big matchups like this.
Yeah.
I know you've studied both these teams a lot. Your thoughts going into this one?
I'm going to just say this. I'm going to say there's too much to speculate about with the Eagles right now because there's a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. So that becomes speculation. So let's talk about the Packers. There's some speculation there as well, but we do know about Jordan Love. And We know that Love improved dramatically in the second half of last season. And I thought there were a couple of areas in which he clearly improved that were very noticeable on tape. Number one, I thought he had such a better feel for understanding the defense before the snap of the ball. And, we've heard all throughout the summer a lot of things that Tom Brady talked about when you see him on social media with interviews that he did, and how frequently he talked about what you see before the ball snapped. And that is so critical for the development of a young quarterback. Because if you're just trying to figure things out as you're dropping back without a really strong sense of what you're looking at, and there's no question the defense will change looks, no question. But there's a lot of keys and indicators pre-snap. And I thought that Jordan Love got so much better at that as the season progressed. I thought he got better using his cadence, which sometimes would allow him to force the defense to declare, and then he'd see it. I thought the nuances of the position he got significantly better at, because there's no question, Ross, and I say this may come across to some as bold and controversial, but it's not. Pure talent, he's top 4 or 5 in the league. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 6'4", 220, and he's got big-time talent.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. Remember when he and Tua both got those contracts around the same time? You and I were saying, Greg, that if they both hit the market, I think there'd be a bunch more teams interested in Jordan Love than they would be in Tua. For a bunch of different reasons.
I don't think that's a question at all.
All right. What about some of the Sunday slate? One that jumps out to me, it's Pittsburgh and Atlanta, because of, Arthur Smith and the newness, and each team has a new quarterback. There's just a lot of new there for the Steelers and the Falcons, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's 16 new offensive coordinators, Ross, and 17 new defensive coordinators in the league right now. So there's a lot of speculation and unknowns right now. I think we know that with Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin's worldview that they want to run the ball and be physical, and that's why they drafted 2 offensive linemen. And obviously Russell Wilson is getting the start to begin the season. So I think the Steelers want to play a certain way on offense. We'll have to wait and see. Atlanta, to me, is a really interesting team. I mean, Kirk Cousins is a very, very professional quarterback. He is a really good player. I'm curious to see their skill players. One thing I'm really curious to see with Atlanta is how they deploy Kyle Pitts. His career, since he came out in 2021 as a very high pick, has really been sort of handcuffed by injuries, and he really hasn't been able to be the Kyle Pitts that I think most thought he could be. He's not a true tight end, but the league has clearly evolved where tight ends are much more than attached players lining up next to the tackle. So he's just the player on their offense that I'm really curious about. And one area with the Falcons offense, and this as a former O-lineman, they've got a good O-line.
Very good.
This is not talked about a lot, but they've got a good O-line.
Very good offensive line. All 5 guys are back. I did see Pitts has some type of injury that popped up this week, which is not good. Hopefully he'll be okay. Greg, I'll probably, anytime I have an NFL game for CBS, I'm going to ask you about that because I want to get your insight into the game I'm calling. I think I got one of the best games, to be honest with you. It's the Arizona Cardinals, whose offense was really good the last few games last year. Once Kyler Murray settled into Drew Petzing's offense, they ran the ball very well, going up against what feels sort of like a revamped Bills team. There's so many guys that we're used to seeing for the Bills, Poyer and Hyde and Tre'Davious White and Mitch Morse and Stephon Diggs. There's a lot of new guys in Buffalo.
They got a lot of questions on defense, and we'll have to wait and see because obviously they'll have 2 new safeties. And 2 of the guys they wanted to play a lot did not really work much through training camp, and that's Mike Edwards, who was a free agent signing, and the rookie draft choice Cole Bishop from Utah. Those guys, they were injured through much of camp, so I don't even know. You've probably done some work already. I don't know if either one is ready to start this particular week 1 game. But, the Cards, I spent a lot of time watching Kyler Murray because I've always felt like I didn't have a great feel for him. And he's a really intriguing player to watch because he's in some ways sort of the new breed of quarterback in the NFL. He's very athletic. He's very mobile. He can beat you anytime with those special kind of plays. And you have to be very careful about that because that can happen anytime. But if you think about playing the quarterback position from sort of a nuanced, detailed, subtle way, that's what he's not good at. And some of it's a function of his size. He has a tendency to break down in the pocket very quickly because, and again, I'm not in his head, so I don't know. Could be a function of his size. I saw him after I think I watched 7 or 8 games this summer. I think I watched maybe every game he played last year because he didn't play that many. I saw him as kind of a function of the coaching staff's ability to present him with defined reads and clean throws to the primary receiver. Because stylistically, he's not really a progression reader because he's going to break down in the pocket. Because the longer he's in the pocket, he just breaks down. And the thing that surprised me is he missed too many routine throws when I watched him last year. So he's really kind of an enigma because he can be special at any moment, but there's not really consistency to the way in which he plays.
So what I'm so interested about that, Greg, is twofold. One is, he was coming off that torn ACL.
Yep.
And he didn't start playing until midway through the year.
Yep.
So question one is, how well did he really know the offense? I mean, I know he worked to know it, but it's not the same as actually doing it.
Correct.
And then number two, how much physical rust did he have? Did that contribute to missing some throws? I mean, we're about to find out. That's a good thing. We're about to find out.
And again, everything you just said is very valid and very fair. But I felt watching him that he needs to be able to hit his back foot and deliver the ball because that's where pressure is not a factor. So I saw him as being very much a function of the OC and the route concepts and combinations. And again, it's the same coaching staff. He's had a whole off season. He could be much, much better at that.
The featured game Sunday afternoon, Greg, is the Cowboys and the Browns.
Yeah.
Curious to know what you'll be watching for. I think I might be watching Myles Garrett against that rookie left tackle for the Cowboys, Tyler Guyton.
Yeah, I was going to go there. It's funny because a lot of people might not realize that the Browns had the best third down defense in the NFL last year, and particularly if it was 3rd and 6 or more, their third down defense was ridiculous. I think it was like 17% conversion rate against the Browns when it was 3rd and 6 or more. And you're 100% right with that D line. Almost everybody is back on the Browns defense, which is very rare in today's NFL. And now you're talking about, you're right, a Cowboys team where you can say that the offensive line, I think they're starting 2 rookies, are they not? They're starting the left tackle, Guyton, who played 14 starts at Oklahoma, all at right tackle, so he doesn't have much experience. And I think Cooper Beebe is the starting center. Now, Beebe, I liked his tape a lot coming out of college, but he did not play a lot of center. So you're dealing with 2 players on your O-line that are rookies against a really, really good D-line. And Jim Schwartz is a veteran coach. He moves people around. Garrett lines up in all different places. Adarius Smith lines up in all different places. I mean, this is a difficult defense to play against, both individually and tactically.
What about the Rams and the Lions, Greg? Sunday night, Rams-Lions, a rematch of that awesome wild card playoff game. I was on the sideline for it. First Lions playoff win in 30-some years. Now we got the rematch. Feels, both teams have some injury things. Jahmyr Gibbs says he's okay with the hamstring. The Rams have been a little bit beat up in camp. That's, it doesn't happen a lot in week 1 where the injuries are an issue.
You're dealing with 2 really professional type quarterbacks who know how to play the position from the pocket. To me, Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFC. To me, there's not a question about that. And Goff, because of the focus, of course, today on the ability to make, sort of those second reaction improvisational plays, of which neither one, that's not their game necessarily. Stafford can do it, Goff not necessarily, but both those guys are really, really pristine from the pocket. Both offenses with their coordinators, essentially McVay's the coordinator for the Rams and Ben Johnson for the Lions, really well-schemed route concepts that do a phenomenal job of attacking zone coverage, getting into the gray areas. Spacing of the routes is beautiful. We know that the Rams do a ton of reduced splits and motion, makes it very difficult to press. Corners tend to play off, so there's free access. They do such a good job with presenting the primary read for the quarterback. And Stafford is a master at the line of scrimmage. I could show you so many plays from a year ago where he checked and audibled at the line of scrimmage and then, made the right call and made the right throw. So you're dealing with two guys who are just highly professional quarterbacks.
Greg, your thoughts on Jets and Niners Monday night?
Yeah, let's leave Aaron Rodgers out because, again, we just don't know. But I think the Jets, I watched a ton of their defense. Their front six is really good. Keep an eye on Jermaine Johnson. That kid could really be special. One thing that stood out watching the Jets, and I know they've lost some guys, Franklin Myers is gone, but most of their pass rushers can win with speed to power, Ross. And you are an offensive lineman, and you know that when you can be physically beaten, that's the first thing you have to be concerned about. That's a much bigger concern than the guys who dance around with all the moves. And their defensive linemen can win that way. And their two linebackers, Mosley and Quincy Williams, really, really good players. They rarely take them off the field. They don't play much dime. They play with 5 DBs so that they can keep Williams and Mosley on the field. So this is a really good defense that the Niners are facing week 1.
Greg, you are the man. Thank you so much for the time, as always.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
Greg is so good. That got me so pumped up for tonight and the entire weekend. Just like Smirnoff, who's sponsoring Greg, the perfect vodka for crafting delicious cocktails, easy to make, versatile, any and all fans over 21. Not only is it the world's #1 vodka, they've been around since 1864. It's official vodka partner of the NFL. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer and head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. Shout out to Jesse Thacker, one of our listeners, or maybe they watch on YouTube, got a new entry door from our friends over at West Shore Home. The best return on investment of anything you can do to your house. It makes a huge difference with the resale value. Plus, if you guys checked out my Instagram at Ross Tucker NFL, the picture of my daughters on their first day of school, that's my new West Shore Home door that they put in last year that we absolutely love. And right now, you guys can get free installation with 48 months, 0% interest, plus an extra $500 off. You can't find that anywhere else. That's just for you guys, Ross Tucker listeners. Get the same door I did. It's gorgeous. Just visit westshorehome.com/Ross to redeem. That's westshorehome.com/Ross.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, feels good to say this, Ross, but we've got a game tonight. Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Who do you like in this one, and why?
I'm going to make this my DraftKings Thursday Night Football Pick of the Week, presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. How do you pick the Ravens in this? I mean, that's hard to do. It's hard to pick the Ravens. It feels to me like the Chiefs, have gotten a new element of speed by drafting Xavier Worthy. I think they'll probably even be just as good at left tackle. I think that's one thing to note would be the rookie left tackle from BYU is something to keep an eye on for sure. But the Ravens, with 3 new starters on the offensive line, they lost Clowney. They lost their defensive coordinator. They might win tonight, but given Lamar Jackson's history against Steve Spagnuolo, I'm certainly not picking for that to happen. Give me the Chiefs. Pretty good game, I would say. I'll go Chiefs 23, Ravens 17.
All right, Ross, bunch of contract notes to get to. Something you talked about earlier, Broncos quarterback Patrick Surtain. He gets by far the biggest defensive back contract in NFL history. Meanwhile, Washington, they give right guard Sam Cosmi a huge contract as well. Texans, they give backup quarterback Davis Mills a 1-year, $5 million extension through 2025. And a surprise injury, Philadelphia. Eagles linebacker Devin White, he is out with an ankle injury.
Well, so Surtain, you heard what Greg said in terms of being the best corner in the league. And corners deserved a lot more. He just took them from $21 million a year to $24 million a year, which is well deserved. Cosmi, I think, is a good player. I guess I wasn't expecting the Commanders to give him that big of a contract. I don't know that I look at him as like being one of the best right guards in the league. The Texans obviously really like Davis Mills. I think it was smart to lock him in through 2025. And the Devin White thing must have happened in practice. It popped up out of nowhere. Sounds like the Eagles were going to start Nakobe Dean anyway, based on some of the reports that were out there. Speaking of reports, I hope as many of you as possible report to Danny South in Orchard Park tonight. I would love to meet you in person. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out Pizza Boy Brewing. Speaking of meeting in person, you can meet me at Pizza Boy Brewing in person on Monday, which will be epic. It's Ross Tucker Trivia, hosted by Ross. I hope I actually know it. What if you guys know stuff about me that I don't know? That wouldn't be good. Sporticulture, HumanHeadNYC.com, BackOfficeSchedule.com, and the glorious best gift of all time, MyFrontPageStory.com. An automatic autograph if you get a story for a loved one and send it to me, Ross@RossTucker.com.